Cyprus, I see, and many more. This webinar is the first of a series of this week on MOOC design. And we are stressing the importance of designing MOOCs to various aims and also the diverse target groups. We won't elaborate a lot on what MOOCs are. MOOCs are massive open online courses. You see here on the screen a definition on this. And what's special about MOOCs is that they are designed for a large number of participants. So there's a design question in the definition itself already. And elements of MOOCs is that it can be accessed by anyone, anywhere. So that are also topics later on in this week, are open to everyone, but offers also a full course experience completely online and for free. So that's a little bit the characteristics of a MOOCs. And therefore it's also very important to look at those characteristics when designing MOOCs itself. However, the MOOC hype is far from over. There are millions, almost 19 million registered participants already in MOOCs. And they started to be the promises of providing quality education to all. So to all people wherever they are living. But it's also used by the big companies and universities as a powerful global marketing tool. And the last couple of years, we see that MOOCs are also used for flexible learning opportunities, both on campus for regular students and both for lifelong learning. Lately, they also provide credits to earn even pathway for continued personal development, but also to get recognition within a bachelor, master, or postgraduate master. And in some, you see still a connection to the social dimension, so the social inclusion dimension of higher education. So if you look back from the last 6 years, we have very different aims why we can use MOOCs, and also very diverse target groups. Those target groups become less massive. It's not 200,000 or 300,000 numbers of participants, but still it's more than a regular classroom. So therefore, we have this week 4 different presentations aiming at different target groups and audiences. And this afternoon, we will focus on how we can use MOOCs for the world of business, especially focusing in Europe. And Christian will talk about this during this afternoon, focusing just on the target of companies and employees in a European context and using MOOCs for the business setting. Later on this week, we will talk about more the social dimension, inclusion, but also the community dimensions will be addressed. You can indeed ask questions in the chat. I see that if there's a possibility to get a certificate of attendance, we might do that. Even a badge was once done at the webinar. We will contact you on this after the webinar if you are registered for this, because then we have your email. Chris, the floor is yours on elaborating on MOOCs for the world of business.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris from Graz, Austria. Can you hear me? Is the volume okay? Is the quality okay? Should I speak louder, maybe? Okay, super. So yeah, very warm welcome to my presentation. I'm really happy that many learners and many interested parties joined this webinar. Feel free, if you have any questions, just interrupt me. We should also make this interactive. And I've prepared certain things for you. So before I start, I will quickly introduce myself, and then I want to run you through a project which I've been coordinating for the almost last 3 years. And we've done a lot of research on the domain of MOOCs for the world of business. And we also have some, I think, interesting findings to share and discuss with you. So I'm really interested what you think about the work we've done and also about your contributions. And then we have, I think, a lot of time left for discussions, questions, and maybe to do a joint outlook. So yeah, at the beginning, I'm Chris, as I said. I work at the University of Applied Sciences in Graz, Austria, and I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Management here. So I wear two hats. On the one side, I come from business administration, so from the world of economics, but also I was always interested in new development trends in higher education, in education in general. So I came across MOOCs quite early. And in the course of the BizMOOC project, which I'm also coordinating, we are investigating the potential how MOOCs could be used by professional lifelong learners, also by companies, and also as an instrument to connect universities and businesses through this relatively new means of education. So I would like to start with a survey, a question towards you. I hope it works. So my first question would be, have you taken a MOOC so far? And I think you can just click here, yes, no, don't know. Maybe also an option. I hope the survey is working for you. I have no experience with that so far, so it's also something new for me to try out. Okay. Okay, yeah, we can see 60% of the people in the webinar have taken a MOOC so far. 20% no, and nobody isn't sure if it was a MOOC or not. We come to this question later also. My second question would be, if yes, have you taken MOOCs in general or the specific MOOC to acquire skills relevant for your work? So whether if the course contributed to some skills you might need at workplace, maybe you even wanted to improve your employability or look even for a new job, or yeah. But it can also be to get additional information or an update, a retraining on certain areas you're tackling within your job environment. Okay. Okay, yeah, also more than 50%, 6% no, and 0% is not true. So that's a very nice result because it's also completely in line when we look at the most recent numbers. That's like Darko mentioned, we have more than 80 million learners in MOOCs already in 2017. And interestingly, more than 50% come with career-oriented motives. So they are looking to increase their employability. Maybe they get the retraining, they get more skills or other skills for their current job, or even they might be interested in getting a new job. We run a similar survey within the BizMOOC project in the first phase, and we even get a result of 70% that people who are enrolling in MOOCs are doing this not just out of interest, maybe to follow some personal interest besides the professional work life, but with a clearly career-oriented motive. So the question we have been raising in the last 2 years was if those expectations, and sometimes very high expectations, can be fulfilled. So to put it in a more provocative way, will I get a better job if I do a MOOC? And the other question was like, if MOOCs are just a bubble, or are they like a door opener for the digital revolution in our educational system? The thing is, I was talking to employers and also other companies. We have done already projects together, and I asked them if they are uptaking MOOCs or not. And most of them answered me surprisingly, they were not aware of MOOCs yet. So then we also put this dimension into the project, investigating whether companies could use MOOCs for human resources, company trainings, maybe customer trainings. And yes, those are really large questions. We thought, okay, this is very hard to answer on ourselves. So we applied for a project to answer that question. And luckily, the European Commission also supported this initiative. And we're carrying out now, since almost 3 years, a project together with universities and companies across Europe to answer those questions. So the research was structured in 3 phases. The first one was the production of the MOOC book 1.0. The MOOC book is less of a book, but more of an online resource where we gathered all the research results and answers and key questions around MOOCs for the world of business, and invited the community to contribute, to give us feedback, to have an open community review approach. And building on this, we made a case study. We produced 3 pilot business MOOCs ourselves, and we had a very comprehensive evaluation around this. And this now is culminating into the MOOC 2.0, where we also provide an updated version with additional lessons learned, recommendations, and good practice deriving from the MOOC implementation. So I quickly run you through the certain steps, what we have done, what we have found out, to stimulate the discussion. So the first step was, as I told you, the MOOC 1.0. We started out by doing discussion papers because it was a huge challenge. We had a very diverse consortium with MOOC experts, but also MOOC novices, companies which have not done anything with MOOCs before, but had extensive online training experience. Also very interestingly from the companies, they told us, the HR managers we talked to, that e-learning has been sold to them many, many times before, but the expectations couldn't be fulfilled. And now we come around the corner with MOOCs, and we have to be very careful with what we promise with MOOCs, because they for sure cannot solve all the problems. And that was very early in the project, only one interesting guiding finding. And so we had more than 100 qualitative semi-structured interviews. We ran a survey with MOOC learners. It was the survey where we found out that more than 70% are doing online training MOOCs for career-oriented goals. And we summarized those findings in 3 needs and gaps reports. We had more than 400 pages of collection of guidelines, state-of-the-art papers, good practices, recommendations, and everything was or is available on moocbook.eu of an open license. But that was just a starting point. So we produced a lot of information, and we wanted to validate. So we thought, before I come to this, I just give you 5 insights from step 1. The first insight was that MOOCs are still not mainstream in the corporate world. So the level of familiarity with MOOCs of European companies was still rather low. More than 3/4 of the companies we have talked to, and those were HR managers of established companies, they were not aware of MOOCs. That was a surprise. It was in 2016, so this for sure has changed a bit in 2018. But although the companies, they were more than 80% were somehow already involved in online training, many of them have not heard of MOOCs, and those that have heard of MOOCs so far, they were very unsure or unaware how they could use them. So this was a very interesting finding, and when you look currently at the MOOC landscape, you can see that companies are already teaming up with MOOC platforms, but very often those are companies with IT focus, very forward-thinking companies, very modern companies. So still the majority of companies, especially in Europe, is not involved in MOOCs yet. Those which recognize MOOCs already, which use MOOCs, they told us, it's best applicable in the domain of human resource development and as a training tool. It was less mentioned for marketing efforts, for example. If they use MOOCs, it would work best as a complementary educational tool, which means it was seen as very realistic to, for example, use specific available MOOCs and then further have an additional on-site training or a very tailored smaller workshop, depending the topics of the MOOC. So complementing existing offers, that was the most realistic scenario, which was outlined by the HR experts. And then also what I told already, that it was mentioned to us that there are high expectations towards MOOCs. So they said, okay, they should save costs, they should be scalable, they should modernize education, provide up-to-date and high-quality knowledge. They should even help us to improve employee retention rates, increase flexibility. So you can see these are a lot of expectations. Some of them can be partially fulfilled by MOOCs, but MOOCs are not the new epiphany. So we have to be very careful with what we promise. And then finally, the HR managers and also some like CEOs of companies, they raised high concerns regarding administrative and inexperienced barriers. Regarding administration, there are like legal limitations, technical issues. It starts with very small issues, for example, like a firewall which is installed on a company, which prevents employees from opening or signing up to a MOOC platform from the workplace. You have all these workplace issues where it's always a question if the time spent in a MOOC is work time or not. What happens if the employer or the employee is in a MOOC during the weekends? So there are a lot of questions, a lot of counter questions came up when talking to the HR experts. Then also you have like confidentiality issues, company secrets. So a lot of issues are there which are still not solved. So that was the first step of the project. So far, do you have any questions regarding the first step? That was done in 2016, and this was our starting milestone also to develop our guidelines for MOOC 1.0. Okay. Yes, the MOOC 1.0 is available, and MOOC 2.0 is coming in 3 weeks. For MOOC 1.0, here's the link. It's very honestly at the moment we are not super satisfied, to put it like this, because we have collected a lot of information in the first book, and now the challenge with the version 2.0 is to display it in a better way, because it should be, especially for the target audience, companies and corporates or HR managers, they have very limited time, so they want to see, yeah, a very fast and easy to follow solution. We have done a very academic approach towards the topic. So we have collected a lot of data, a lot of written a lot of reports, brought in a lot of sources. So now it's I think a lot of valuable information. The huge challenge we are working right now at the moment is to present it in a more accessible way for version 2.0. There's a question in the chat forum. If there is difference between sectors, I would say yes and no. As I outlined already in the IT sector, MOOCs are very well known, at least to our sample. So we had, if you look also at companies like SAP, they already have their own corporate MOOC platform. But then if you look at very traditional sectors, I think this is a completely different story. So most of those companies, at least the ones in our survey, they weren't aware of MOOCs yet. If there is a certain area of knowledge or skills. That was also interesting. HR managers, some of them said, that's nice if MOOCs are scalable. It would be very easy, for example, to use them for mandatory staff training, for example, updating them on this new data protection guideline. And I think this is a very dangerous approach towards MOOCs, because this is a mandatory training then for the employees, and you're misusing the opportunities MOOCs would have for doing HR differently for a mandatory training. So you have a bad start. I think for some general knowledge and skills, MOOCs are very well applicable. I will show a good practice example in a few slides about the MOOC about innovation within companies. It depends if you go into, at least in my opinion, if you want to teach or train a topic on a certain skill, you really need to train with your hands or something. Doing this with MOOC can be very hard. There are new approaches with virtual reality and stuff where you can have workarounds and do this also without being there face to face. but I'm not sure if the majority of MOOCs is there yet.
There's a question from Jonathan related to MOOCs becoming quickly limited and closed instead of open and massive.
I completely agree. So massive and open are the two domains in the MOOC, which like we see an unMOOCification in the business world. Now what we see currently is everything is getting more modular, it's getting closed. Courses are not that massive anymore, it's for a dedicated audience. There's also something like a SPOC, which is a small but online, a small but private online course. So like a company closed environment MOOC. I also saw MOOCs of large corporates, which were closed MOOCs, but still that large because it was done by a large multinational. So I completely agree to what Jonathan is writing here, that it's becoming very limited and closed. And it's not only, I would say, the corporate world, it's a general development, which is also happening without the involvement of the corporate world, um, I would say. And we started out with a very clear definition to answer your question more precisely, that we only take a look at real MOOCs, which are massive, open, online, and courses, and really open. But of course, we also took a look at those developments that many online courses are sold as MOOCs, which are not MOOCs per definition anymore. Okay, then I will move on. So what we did next is we wanted to use the learnings, our own guidelines to develop and produce 3 different MOOCs. We used 3 different platforms. None of them were like really major platforms such as Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, and so on. So we used local platforms, European platforms. We used very different approaches also within the MOOC teams which produce them. So we had interdisciplinary teams between companies and universities, very differing levels of experience doing that. Also, we had different designs, MOOC designs. For example, one MOOC was clearly built on the reuse of existing materials. One MOOC was done from scratch, filming and producing everything for the MOOC, putting in a lot of investment in terms of staff time and also video production, and also using a more professional platform. And another MOOC was done on a freely available platform. So we had very different approaches. Also the MOOCs itself, one was more CMOOC-like, which is a connectivist MOOC. The other one was more XMOOC-like. One was more moderated. Another one was a self-paced MOOC, which means there is no fixed start and ending date. You can run through the course whenever you want to. So we wanted to learn more how business learners react to different course formats. I will show you more details on one of the MOOCs we have done, and it's a course on the topic of intrapreneurship, which is entrepreneurship within existing organizations. It's a rather old concept from 1985, but it's coming more relevant recently again as companies struggle to innovate in the current hyperdynamic environment. So we thought it would be a niche topic. We were really surprised that we reached more than 3,000 learners from 98 countries, and the majority, like more than 2/3, were business learners with significant professional background. What was interesting in this MOOC, we experimented with flexible course tracks. So we had the fast track for managers, and we were fully aware that we were catering a business audience. So we had to do something differently than a typical MOOC. So we tried to bring a lot of hands-on examples, a lot of good practice, also offering these different course tracks for people with limited time, also to motivate them to go for the full course track. So I think this was one thing which worked really well. So we had good, I think, good MOOC completion rate, above 20% in the fast track, and even 60% in the full track, which asked the participants to sign up for for online teams to work on their own entrepreneurship examples, and they had to apply different innovation tools to finally present their final idea online with a pitch to the other teams and do a very long peer review. So we were really proud that from the full track, 60% which enrolled for this also completed the track. The most surprising thing was really for us how we could activate the power of the cloud. And I think this was maybe the secret success of that MOOC. We used a design concept introduced by Gilles Salmon, which is like the queen of e-moderation. And she has this eDVD design, which helps you to turn your learners into very active learners. So it's following a three-step approach that you give learners a task that they need to search for something, for example, and then they should come back to the platform, present it to the other learners, and then they have to comment on other examples shared by the learners. And with this eDVD approach, we created so much small knowledge hubs on very small topics, around very small topics. For example, we collected 225 real-life entrepreneurship examples, and to my knowledge, in the whole internet, there's no such collection existing yet. So I think this was the real benefit, and this was also feedback to us by the learners in the core service. So that was overwhelming how the learners became co-creators and how they took up this challenge, or we challenged them with the eDVDs, and how they engaged with each other. Because the interesting thing was the eDVDs were not mandatory part of the points which you need to earn in order to get your certificate. This was only voluntarily, but I think this was also maybe a driver to motivate them, because everything you force on them adds a different taste to the MOOC experience. I can see Jörg from Karlsruhe University in Sweden. You developed also a MOOC to ideation. Very interesting. It's linked below. I will check afterwards. Thank you very much. CMOOC and advanced. Well, yeah, we had a very basic one on ideation. So this was like the predecessor to the entrepreneurship MOOC. And I can show you challenges I already spoke about. It was very hard in the beginning to cater to such diverse needs. We had managers, at least middle managers, not top managers. We had only very few because they're really hard to get for a MOOC. But we had a lot of lower managers. We had a lot of employees working in the IT sector. We had a lot of we also had students, my own students. I sent some of them in the MOOC. So we had a very different course audience. And I think we could solve many of those challenges by offering these different flexible course tracks. So we had in total 4 different course tracks. The largest one was the full course certificate, including an on-site exam. The smallest one was the fast track, where I just had to do the first 4 weeks, approximately 3 hours of study time, and no engagement in any activities if you don't want to, and you get your certificate. However, it was interesting, this fast track certificate motivated some people to go for the full track. The e-moderation concept worked very good to stimulate the cloud. I can put in the concept in the chat forum. And also language, of course. And this is not a corporate MOOC or business MOOC specific problem, I think. We had, especially in the second MOOC, we operated with a bilingual MOOC platform, and this helped to overcome some language issues. It's really different within Europe. So, for example, if especially in Southern Europe, some in Eastern Europe, it was very hard to go there with an English-speaking MOOC. Also, the learners ask for at least the transcripts for the videos. We didn't have that in the entrepreneurship MOOC at the beginning, and we wanted to do it, but we didn't have the time to do it right away. So the learners did it themselves, and there was one learner translating and bringing transcripts or uploading transcripts to the videos in a perfect quality. We couldn't have done it better. So that was really overwhelming to see how learners became co-facilitators in the course. Cloud stimulation, I mean that we had almost 3,000 learners in the MOOC, and this concept of activities helped to turn those participators into active learners, into co-creators. So we had discussion forums. They were like overflowing with communication activities, and I think this was the real benefit, the difference compared to a normal online course. That the people brought in so many things by themselves. If you speak about innovation or entrepreneurship, there's not this one approach existing. Of course, there are a lot of theories and concepts behind to introduce the learners to all of them. But then you always want to learn about good practice, about how other cultures, how other people, how other companies overcame the challenge. So that was very interesting also for myself. I'm teaching innovation topics in my university, and now I have a collection of examples of different approaches I could never ever, I think, researched on my own. So that was a really, I think this unlocked the real potential of the MOOC format, especially in this business context. To give a short overview about the methodology, this was the methodology which surrounded all three MOOCs. So this is just for the third MOOC now. We had the MOOC design review for all of the MOOCs. So a very early prototype was evaluated by the other MOOC teams and also by external experts to get early feedback, to do iterations. I don't know if you know this lean approach from entrepreneurship. We tried to incorporate it also in the MOOC design. And then we had the pre-course survey and interviews with experts before the course. And that was also very helpful to get feedback because we sent them access to the MOOC already. We gave them a description, how the MOOC looks like, and just 6 open questions, very short. If it's, for example, interesting for your target group, for your peers, what are the most relevant topics? Is, for example, the certificate important for your learners, for your workers or not? And the same we did with an open survey within the MOOC platform, and more than almost 700 people filled out the pre-course survey, which gave us a lot of feedback already before the course, how our audience looks like, what is the typical student. There's no typical student in our MOOC, but it gave us a better impression who is coming to the course, what experience level to expect, and which course track might be most interesting, and also to reflect the expectations before the course with the survey we ran after the course. Yeah, so we did also again expert interviews this time in focus groups after the course. The experts were HR experts, some also from university, but most of the experts came from companies, also innovation managers, and then also we took a close look at the MOOC course statistics. For example, we saw if the activity level is declining, we could react right away by increasing our moderation efforts. So that was very useful, and I think also this is one of the benefits you have in a MOOC compared to other more traditional training approaches. So you can monitor the course activities live, so get it instantly, and you can instantly react by, for example, doing moderation differently, mailing to the learners that if they struggle with some, I don't know, deadline or something, so you can react right away. It's always, I think, a pity when you learn about something which went wrong afterwards when you can't react anymore. Okay. So we have collected a lot of learnings and recommendation lessons learned. I will show you in like 10 minutes where you can find all of that. before that, I want to share 3 interesting findings from from running this MOOC, and also contrasting it with our research, and from evaluating all the expert interviews, and also the learner surveys and the course statistics. We have much more, but I think I just chose 3 for this webinar, and I would also like to get your opinion. The first finding was employees prefer to stay private and self-determined when it comes to learning. We have spoken to a lot of companies and HR experts, and also the interviewees that were HR experts. They said the MOOC looks very interesting to them. However, they first want to look themselves if this is something they can recommend to their participants. Still, some companies recommended the MOOC as official training offered to their employees. But most of the learners will enrolled with the private email address, which means not with the company email address, to stay anonymously, to not being connected to the company. We found out with the survey, because we asked them if they're working in a company, how many years, if they're currently employed, what's the extent of employment, and so on. So we contrasted it with the findings, and we found out that still, if the employees are learning by recommendation from the HR managers, still they prefer to stay private, to enroll with the private email address. Yes. But what would you say? For example, if you're, I don't know, HR manager, or somebody who's in charge of your workplace training, would you enroll with your company, with your official address, if you could choose for yourself, or would you enroll with your private address, email address? You're not able to interact. Yeah, that's a good point. So the CSS, if you have a private email address, you can still access the MOOC even if you leave the company. That's a very good point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's also true. So it depends on the intention you have for enrolling the MOOC. So if you want to get a better job at a different company, of course, maybe it might make sense not to enroll with the company address. And yes, that was also a large topic, and because people, at least to our research, showed that people do not trust MOOCs yet. And especially in times like this, where we hear a lot of scandals also with online data not being treated carefully, that yeah, people are scared if they can be tracked, or yeah. Just waiting for Jonathan. So yeah, I fully agree. Currently, the discussion is going around that um, yeah, I think it's connected to the intention. Yeah, and Jonathan, I also agree that if you do it once, if I interpret correctly, the barrier is lower to enroll for more MOOCs yet. Mhm. What was also interesting, as a feedback from the business learners, we had, for example, in one of our free MOOCs, and a sign-up procedure, which was only a bit longer than for the other MOOCs. And a lot of learners were not amused by this, and a lot of learners decided to not enroll just for this reason. We only found out because some people contacted us, and we don't know the dark number, how many people we lost by this. And so it's very critical when you're doing a sign-up procedure for your MOOC, when you're choosing the platform you want to do the MOOC with, or if you run your own platform or set up your own MOOC, to carefully consider which data you are requesting, um, and to make a very easy sign-up procedure with not too many steps involved. Okay, then I will go to the next question if there are no further comments currently. Also interesting, we spoke about barriers at the beginning. So there were these administrative barriers, then also legal barriers, confidentiality issues, also yeah, company secrets, then also technical issues, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, in the MOOCs we have offered, all of those topics were no problem at all. And we found out by speaking to the learners and the experts afterwards, that was only the reason because the MOOCs were not offered by the companies, and it was not an official company training offer, not an institutional cooperation between us and the companies. So by this moving the ownership and responsibility towards the employees, all those unsolvable barriers have been solved. My question is it really solved or just a shift of responsibility? Just waiting for 3 people are typing at the moment. Mm-hmm. So Lucia is saying the ownership should be shared, but the employees should be responsible for their own learning. Jonathan's writing, you're inviting people to take responsibility for the training outside the organization. In a competitive market, this could mean you lose employees to the competition. Mm-hmm. So this is something else I come to with my next question. I'm not spoiling it. Spoiling it. We had a roundtable very recently in Graz where we invited policymakers and also HR managers, then also representatives of learners, and also someone who is responsible for the education, for the vocational educational training of a lot of people in the region where I live. And it was a really heated discussion about the self-responsibility of learners. So to what extent someone is responsible for him or herself, and to what extent the organization needs to push employees. And then also, if, for example, now MOOCs are part of the company training program, you are somehow also invited to learn on the bus rides to work or also over the weekend. So there are a lot of different connections, questions connected to this discussion, and it can be very tricky to strike a balance here. That's a nice quote from Andre. What if you invest on training employees and then they leave? And the other thing is, and what if you don't and they stay? I think it's a perfect link to the final question I wanted to discuss, which was one interesting outcome as well from doing the pilot MOOCs. Also, we confirmed in our MOOCs that a lot of learners came with business background. They were learners. They came with the expectation to increase their employability, to learn skills required for jobs. I just look up the numbers right now. I put it somewhere. I think it was like, yeah, the top 3 reasons to participate was to learn new things. So 86%, to improve my skills were 84%, and to improve career options was the third most mentioned reason to participate. So also in our MOOC, we confirmed the study I showed in the beginning that more than 50% of the learners come to improve their job skills. And to be in line with Andre's comments that what if you do not invest and they stay, but also what if you invest and they're leaving the company? I would raise the third question: if employees are maybe overtaking their HR department with MOOCs, if they're still unaware, if they're hesitant to recommend something, and then you have already more than 80 million learners worldwide in MOOCs, and more than half of them coming with career-related orientation. So it's also maybe about losing control about their employees. We recently presented a poster at the Learning with MOOCs conference with Friedl, and it was very interesting to discuss this development. At least in our case study, it was confirmed, but of course it's just one case study, and it's a very provocative question raised here. We answered it with more scientific research questions. Yeah, Andre said it's a dilemma, but if it's the organization's goal to train employees, then the responsibility and ownership should be shared. But if it's more a free choice kind of initiative, then the employees should not feel like they are being forced to do so, right? I agree. And also, I had the same situation with my students. I gave them, or I kind of forced them to do the MOOC because it was part of one class I was running during the time. And they told me afterwards it was really nice to learn in the MOOC. It's a new format for many of them, and they really like to be connected with business professionals to work jointly on ideas and further them. But they also said it added a different taste because they had to do it mandatorily. For example, our MOOC ran over the Easter holidays. And I thought it's very convenient for the students because they have a lot of stress during the semester. So they can do the course on their mobile phone, I don't know, whenever they have time. Yeah, so very flexible, very convenient, very millennial, you know. And it was completely different. They were really disappointed that I give them a task which they have to do over the Easter holidays because one of the deadlines was running in that period. So they complained. The employees, they were really happy that they could do something when they have more time to think and it's not in this tight daily working schedule. But it was also interesting to see with my students already that it's a completely different experience when you have to do something. Jonathan is adding that MOOCs are easier to do in micro moments across the day and week. They're not on the desk or necessarily at work activity, unless you do it at lunchtime. Yeah. That's a huge competition, food against education. Yeah, I would also agree. And also some learners, they said we had some really active co-creators as learners, and some of them they wrote to us afterwards. They printed out some things, or even took their tablets to the workplace and discussed it with colleagues who were not enrolled for the MOOC, and then came back with their ideas. So they connected different ecosystems surrounding the MOOC and also their current work life. Okay, I think we only have a few minutes to go, so thank you very much for contributing to the discussion, and they're very interesting inputs as well. So I don't know if we can, if somehow also, I don't know how private this whole webinar is. I think it's going to be recorded, so I think the discussions will be also available afterwards. Maybe we can also, or should Darko will link the webinar discussion from OpenMapEd. But I want to summarize at the end what you can expect from MOOC 2.0. And if you are interested in those kind of questions, if you're interested in what we have learned, because this was only the tip of the iceberg, I would invite you to check out the MOOC 2.0. It's again an open resource, open educational resource. So it will be published with a Creative Commons license. We summarized the key questions in the MOOC domain. So we collected key questions for higher education, but also for businesses and also for the learners, of course. And they will be presented in the MOOC Book 2.0 from the 12th of November. We also have 50 recommendations, 25 lessons learned, and 20 good practices collected we are going to present there. And we have a Learn More area where we have all these discussion papers, the reports on these surveys and interviews we've run in the first phase of the project. And then also we want to share all the resources we've used in the project. So we've established a lot of different templates, evaluation surveys, interview guidelines, also the comprehensive evaluation design. You can check out everything in MOOC Book 2.0 from the 12th of November. If you still want to know more, we have done a lot of publications recently based on the MOOC book. There was one on corporate MOOC trends in the trend report from OpenUpEd. This was the one if employees are overtaking the HR departments with MOOCs. I think it's already published in the Proceedings of Madrid. Here is one paper on the MOOC on entrepreneurship. This is maybe the next step, next avenue in our research, if MOOCs can become a large-scale bottom-up innovation driver in companies. Then we have all these evaluation reports on MOOCs, on MOOC 3, but also on the other MOOCs. So there are more than 400 pages of data if you're interested. And then there's a new project starting. We're very excited. So we won a new project which is going to be called CoreShip, Corporate Entrepreneurship. And it's going to start on the 1st of January 2018. Many of the BizMOOC partners are involved again. Also, Darko will be there as associate partner. So we are very happy to continue in that kind of research where we'll again have a MOOC. We will also do a micro-credential this time, and we will have more focus on corporate entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. There are a lot of not only exciting words, but nice concepts. Okay, thank you very much. We're very happy if you want to connect with me and maybe you want to do a project or something together or some research, feel free to contact me. And yeah, many thanks for your contributions and for the active discussion. It was very interesting for me to do, and I hope also that it was interesting for you. So, thank you very much.